April 1st saw the birth of our podcast, Sheri Says. But there's no fooling with this because this is where we begin putting things into perspective: business, finance, self development, self care, knowing how to grow and to scale, not only on a professional level, but on a personal level. You don't want to miss this. You need to be a part of the community that pays attention to what Sheri says because there is so much to say. In Jamaica, we have a saying that is simply put, hole in our reasoning. And that basically means just chit-chatting, fleshing things out, getting it into perspective. And I tell you, out of quite a few sessions of all in our reasoning with my very good client and now very respected associate and friend, Steve Cole, we have really come together and discovered that these reasonings need to not be confined to our quarters, but we need to share it with those who will get golden nuggets from what we have been divulging. And I'm very happy to be sharing space with Steve today. It was interesting though, because as we started talking, crash and burn became the first thing that started our reasoning. So let's get right into it, shall we?
So, in terms of relevance, um, we were talking about this whole idea of crash and burn because we experienced it, right? you know what,
Mm-hmm.
in the last venture. And the lessons learned is always a very important thing, right? Now,
Right.
well, for many, I think one of the key takeaways, if any, is that there are some salient points, and I think one of them is the ability to grow and learn, right?
Yes.
Vis-a-vis crash and burn. So, I mean, I have a brethren, I recall, who he had a business, booming business, thriving, doing well. And I think he didn't even make it to 2 years before this thing crash and burn, as we call it, right? And of course, he was flabbergasted, blown away, couldn't understand how a business that was on the up and rise without any apparent external factors causing his business to implode. He was just flabbergasted as to what happened here? Why did I, crash and burn, so to speak? So if anybody is interested in having an idea how to not let something like that happen to them, whether it is that they have an intention of starting a business or even in the trenches right now growing a business, they'd want to listen up, for the next few minutes. Okay.
All right, sounds good. I have a question, and I know for the person who is just finding the podcast and they hear the term crash and burn, they might be saying, okay, what exactly does that mean? So you want to give us a little bit of definition?
Yeah, sure. The idea is that you want to avoid pitfalls that is typical to most upcoming businesses. Truth be told, many micro business and solopreneurs, people, individuals who are getting started with being all enthusiastic about their startup, most of them don't make it, right? That's just the truth. And there are a lot of statistics out there. If you Google it, you'll find out that, any business within the first 2 years that actually make it, what's typical is that by they get to the next 2 years, they don't. And we want to ask the salient question, why is that so, right? Because if it can happen to them, that means the possibility is likely that it can happen to you. And the statistics support that.
One of the things, though, that we find glaring is that, and this is in the Jamaican and maybe even the Caribbean situation, most, if not all, small businesses start with personal funding.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's not that the funding is in excess, it is a pay as you go and pay as you grow situation. Of course, with the dream, the hope, the aspiration that it is going to become profitable, or at least the business idea will generate enough income to keep it going.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately for most or for too many, the funds run out before the time expires.
Mm-hmm.
Do we then say to this entrepreneur, sole entrepreneur, aspiring business owner, wait until you have adequate capitalization, particularly because in our Caribbean situation, in our Jamaican situation for sure, our financial institutions do not invest in startups generally, nor do they have an appetite to support you until you are financially viable and pretty much don't need them anymore.
That is so true. And especially in Jamaica, it's so much easier to get a car loan than it is to get a loan for your business.
Yes.
um, yeah, it's amazing. But one of the key thing when it comes down to finance is trying to find something that does not tie you to a very high percentage return, not on your investment, but certainly the investment of the bank, right? Or the lender. So that, because that will put you under greater strain in having the ability to pay it back, and doesn't leave much room if you have, you know, you have expenses juggling, right? There's not enough room for you to move around and be able to allow the business to thrive within a reasonable time, right? Because depending on the amount of expenditure, the capital expenditure laid out for your business, of course, it varies with different types of business, right? But obviously, if you have a high capex, it means that it will take you a much longer time before you hit your break even, right? Which means your expenses that you would have spent over time, the business is now able to generate funds to cover that, right? So if you have that long period of time to get to that place, then obviously if you would have less room to wiggle if you have a high interest rate dealing with, right? So that's kind of why it's such a easier move to, one, go out of pocket, and two, get, loved ones to support you, you know? But to be honest with you, Sharon, it's not so much the money that is the sole challenge of a business person getting started. It's really about the mindset, and I find that that is a
Yes.
big challenge to overcome, the internal voice within. Because whether we like it or not, there are gonna be challenges coming up, right? And primarily, one of the thriving source of sustaining or being able to sustain your business is being able to solve problems, right? And not so much your problems, but the problems of your prospective customers. Make sense? So if you're in a better, if you're in a better able position to help more people, then your remuneration for doing so is, potentially much greater than if you are incapable of meeting the needs of many, right? And sales and marketing, most people that is lost on most people. Sales and marketing is the key for survival for any business, right? And let me tell you why I raised that point. You spoke about, people who are starting up, they're excited about what they're doing. So let's say I'm a baker, or if I am a dressmaker, or maybe I have an ice cream business with this idea of this new flavor that I think the world will love, and I would share that with the world and all will be well. The minute you start a business, Sharon, is the minute you become a salesperson. And for many persons, that's a bad word.
And that is what, I'm glad you went there. And I just want us to take it from a position. There's a gentleman who will forever be a beacon of excellence in my mind. His name is Scott Kemp. And he was the senior vice president with my host agency. And for quite a while before he moved on to other things. But one of his lessons was, you are in sales. You're not in customer service. Yes, you perform customer service related activities, but you are in sales. What does that mean? You must get the money.
Yeah.
So, irregardless of whatever other wonderful services you perform that leads up to the sale, if you have not made a sale after spending countless hours with that client, whether in person or on the phone, and you have not made any money, you are a glorified customer service agent. You're not running a business.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's kind of what I said. I mean, sales and marketing is, while they're correlated, they're mutually exclusive, right? But if nobody knows that you have something to offer, then nobody will be able to buy from you. That's the truth.
That is true. That is true.
Right? So I'm not trying to use the words interchangeably. I'm just trying to make it clear that it's important that customers find you. That's the first thing. And then after they find you, the what next is conversion, right? Them being able to move
Correct.
from just being interested in what you have to be willing to fork out that money and give it to you, right? So, yeah, if you are the great, I mean, look, McDonald's, if you ask most persons about McDonald's and the burger, if they think they could make a better burger than McDonald's, I'm sure they're gonna tell you yes,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah, but then the next question is, so why aren't you a billionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if you can make a better burger than them, then it means that, making burgers is not what makes you, or the best tasting burger is not what makes you a millionaire, by no means, right? There's a number of other things to consider, and the primary lifeblood of any business is making sales. That's it.
Right.
Full
Right.
stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because once you're a business person, you're about that money, and it ain't no shame in the game, right?
And it's interesting, because and it's kind of going back to where you were not long ago, where you're saying persons seem to want to delay asking for the money. And that was one of our biggest challenges when we started. Yes, you want the sale. Yes, you woke up, you approach the customer, you did your pitch, whatever was the context of that presentation. But ultimate intention is to get that sale. Why is it then, as a people, is it how we were cultured that we are afraid now to say, will that be cash or credit?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's culture, maybe we want to be polite, we don't want to come across offensive to anyone. And I think it's also a human thing. Reason being, as a person, I know for sure I might want to buy, but I don't want to be sold.
Uh-huh.
So the question is, how do you make that process comfortable for someone to want to exchange goods and services for their hard-earned dollar?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And so one of the techniques that we have found to be very, very useful is to indicate from the get-go to the prospect, because for me, I have clear lines of demarcation. There are some persons who might take offense to it, but hey, that's just the way it is. The prospect has not made a financial contribution or commitment to this process, while my customer, I know what the color of their money is. That's just the way I process it. So I will say to this customer, to this prospect, during the process of the presentation, bear in mind that we want to give you the best. Let's even put it bang for your buck. We want to give you the best deal. We want your money. Unashamedly, without question, we're talking, we're going through the process because I have something that you have contemplated receiving, and it goes for just about any product. My business is travel, but it could be anything. But the conversation needs to start early, stating that even though we're having a cordial discourse, even though we're probably even enjoying each other's company, the end game, the reason why we have come together is for an exchange. The goods and services that I have for the tangible that you have, which in the sales process is money.
Yeah. And, one of the biggest problem too, I have found anytime, especially in sales, anytime you share someone with someone, the cost, right? Like the dollar value of the service that you're giving, and what proceeds next is so much.
Yes.
Then you know
Yes.
you have not done a good job of communicating the value that
That's
you're
it.
offering the customer, and I think that's one of the biggest challenge that for many persons who are entering the space of doing transaction is their inability to communicate value.
And not only, Steve, if I might interject, not only the value of the goods or services that you're offering, but also why should I get it from you?
Exactly. There's so many other options, right? So why should I buy it from you?
And this now is where you offer your value proposition. This is not a tangible that you can put on a spreadsheet or whatever and show. This is something that you are going to have to kindle the sensitivity of your listener to see that it makes good sense spending my money here. And without moving too far away, what would you say as a consumer would be tangible reasons why you would want to spend your money here? Here being that figurative space that we're speaking of.
Yeah. You see, the thing is that I think for a lot of persons, especially if, let's say, for instance, I'm your new sales clerk, right? And I'm working for you, and you put me on the sales floor, right? I would be more inclined, because I'm not thinking as a customer what I would want. I'd be more inclined to sell features than I am selling benefits.
Okay.
And that's wrong, right? That's a no-no. You see, the thing is, we have to ask ourselves, putting ourselves in the customer's shoe, what is it that they want? Remember, when I started out as saying that you have to be willing to serve them, right?
Correct.
And by serving them, you're actually trying to, either you're trying to alleviate some kind of pain, or, some pain point that they have, or should I say relieve them of it, or the second thing is that you're offering something that can add pleasure, that's pleasing to them. You're satisfying a desire, a want. You know what I mean? So you have to talk about and focus on the benefits, right? And that is one of the things that will help you to communicate value. Nobody buys a drill because they want, they want it has the nicest bit. Or,
Mhm.
you know, they want a drill because it creates a hole in the wall. That's why you buy the drill, right?
Right, right. But why are we buying it from? And you can now see my age by me saying this. Why are you buying it from hole in the wall as opposed to Delta Supplies? You know what I mean?
Yes, you're revealing yourself.
I certainly am.
I think you're
But
self-disclosing here.
I know. But there was a thought that came to me as you were saying that. And I remember some time ago I shared it with someone. Could have been you.
Hmm.
You will tell me if it was. And I got a mini slogan that I started using because of the feedback that I got from my clients. And that was, we sell feel good.
Ah, see?
And yeah, and it kind of just slipped off my tongue in that particular conversation. But the more I listened to myself saying it, I realized that that was really what we sold. Of course, we could do the whole liturgy of all the things that we sell,
Mhm.
cruises, vacation packages, holidays, reunions, weddings, da da da. The list goes on and on.
But you
But
sell experience.
I sell experience.
And more
And
importantly, the feel-good type.
yes. So my thought process was, how much can you put as a dollar value on feel good? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's easy, right? Because let's face it, if I am relaxed, less stressed, less tired, it means that I'm more focused on the job, which means I'm less prone to making mistakes that can cost not only me, but the company potentially millions of dollars, depending on the level of responsibility that I have, right? And it could extrapolate into so much more. You know, making the right
Mhm,
decision, life decision making without being clear headed about what you're doing, that can cost you, right? So
mhm.
you could come up with many scenarios as to how, taking good care of not just your body but your mind, um, and being holistic about self-care, right?
Yes, yes.
Can contribute immensely to the well-being of any body who seeks to enjoy that which is there for the taking.
And I'm glad you said self-care. And you're really touching some of the most powerful points that have come through my deliberation with clients on a whole, because self-care is another issue. And even during this time of pandemic, I'm sure that has now become a more spoken about issue, because as consumers, one of the first things that you'll hear us say is you work hard for your money. That is a given.
Mhm.
And as a result, you want to make good decisions with how you disperse these funds. And self-care, unfortunately, gets on the back burner because, especially if you are a giving personality, you're always putting self for last. I'll get around to it. I'll do this. I'll do that spa day for me. I will sleep in someday for me. I will go out for a meal because I don't want to be in the kitchen slaving over the stove all day, but someday, not today. And very soon, someday doesn't seem to really become a reality because so many things take precedence. And so this time has given us an opportunity, and many people have been saying that, to stop. You've been forced to stop, to take stock, to look at who and what is important, and realizing for the most part that there is really no time like now to just pay attention to me. There are some people who think that's selfish. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, I've never really sold fish in all of my life.
Oh, that is interesting.
Play on words, right? But yeah, no, truth be told, there is nothing absurd and there's nothing wrong about self-care. In fact, if you are in a peak state, you're in a better place to serve well. You understand? So the contrast to the imagery that has been spoken of just now, is while it might seem, I don't know what's the word, it seems weird, but it's actually more helpful when you care for yourself, because by doing so you're in a better state of mind and better health to help somebody else. You can't help nobody if you pop down.
That's right. And I'm looking at our basic startup conversation, crash and burn. So
Yeah.
you see, we're coming full circle because you think about the business, it collapses because of, and we're ticking off some boxes. But what about the human element? Did you, the business owner, have a burnout? Did you lose your fire? And, another play on words again. Did you push so much hoping to get it off the ground that you neglected yourself, both on a nutritional level, rest level, sacrificially, because you're pumping everything into the business and you say, it's all right, me take care of myself sometime in the future. And crash and burn of the proprietor happens even before the business goes belly up.
Yeah, because think about it, right? You'll take of yourself later, take care of yourself later. But then, I mean, the business starts to thrive, your health goes down, and the money goes into the doctor bills. Who are
Uh-huh.
you funding?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when you think about it, when you go on the airplane and you're getting that instruction, flight in-flight instruction before you take off, isn't the one of the first thing they tell you is that you should ensure that if the air gets, thin and the oxygen mass, drops, you're supposed to do what? Put on
Put yours
yours.
on first.
Yes. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, I mean, it means that you have to be able to be in a good state before you can help others. It just makes sense, right? Now, one other thing though, Sharon, is that when we're talking about this whole matter of, getting into a business that's thriving, I find that we might be focused on a whole host of things. So, I have to get my website up, because visibility is
Mm-hmm.
important, so that people can Google me. And then I have to get this design done, and I have to do, all of which sounds very important. I have to
Mm-hmm.
answer this email, I have to do that. But when you look at it, they're actually low value activities, right? So you find that when you spend a lot of time on things that don't generate money, um, you find that you're either doing one of two things. You're earning less money that you could possibly be earning, or it's gonna actually be activities that are costing you, which is
Yes.
worse, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right. So we have to focus on narrow down on the things that are of utmost importance. And I'm sure you would have heard about the Pareto rule, right? The 80%, 20% thing, where
Yes. Yes.
20% of the people do 80% of the work.
Mm-hmm. And how does that work out? What's the end game in that generally?
Well, it's about where you put your focus. Like, who are you serving, right? So
Right.
if I notice that you know, I am going to be finding that 20% of my customers are generating 80% of my money that I earn, then who do I want to pay particular attention to? Without disenfranchising the others, of course. But to whom am I gonna zero down on to make sure I get more of those customers?
I'm glad you said that because early in the game, and I think maybe because we positioned ourselves as a concierge style agency, we worked deliberately to be on the phone because we're basically phone and online based. We want to be at work when you are off from work. We want to answer our phones when the other travel providers have stopped answering their phone. So we want to work after 5 p.m. We want to be at our peak at 7:30 when you have pretty much gotten in through the door, kicked off your shoes, loosened your belt, and have dinner on the way. We want at 8:30, 9 o'clock, when you have now put the children to bed, helped with homework, done the bathing, all of that, and you have a glass of wine, you are finally able to look with the spouse on trips and start daydreaming. We want to be the agency that at 9:30 that evening, on a Friday night, I dare say, you can pick up the phone and you can call and you can say, now, Sheri, tell me, what do you think about this trip? And I paint that picture because I want you to speak to us now about that value proposition that I've just painted.
Well, the question is, are you meeting them rather than rather than making somebody come to you where it's convenient to you, getting into their space where it's convenient to them is what works. You know what I mean? So if 9:30, 9 o'clock is the time that they are available, then awesome, it works, right? That's very key. And think about it from this perspective. When you remember back in the days before there was, the widespread and pervasiveness of the internet, we used to have billboards, right? You remember that? I mean, we still do, but I mean, who's looking, right? but
Right.
but the truth of the matter is, if you notice that the biggest billboards were placed where, like, on the biggest highways, right?
That's
So
correct.
because that's where we're all stuck in traffic and we need something for our eyes to gaze on, right? So so you're putting the message before the people where they are. You know where they are. They're stuck in traffic. So hey, billboard. You know what I mean? So
Right.
the idea is meeting people where they are, and it's nothing new. It's not a it's not an earth-shattering truth. It's just that it's common sense, and unfortunately, you and I know that common sense is really not that common, right?
Not that common.
Because if it was a case, then these simple things, these simple truths could have been readily applied into many businesses, and you and I know we don't see it, right? Um,
Correct.
and I'll give you an example. When you're doing, let's say for argument's sake, email marketing, right? If you don't check your emails to, let's say, till 9 o'clock, right? Would me sending my email to you at 12 midday be useful to me as a business person, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not, because the person who sends it their email closer to 9:30 is the one who would be seen first. They'll be on top, right? And you and I know, especially and I mean, the same principle works for if I'm doing advertisement. Everybody wants to get to page 1 on Google, because you and I know that many persons they don't go past page 2 in their search.
True. True.
Right? So And the only reason for them to reach on page 2 is if they didn't see what they're looking for on page 1. So
Right.
the idea you have about telling them that meet me at 9:30 because you know that they're busy during the course of the day. They're now off, more relaxed, having finished cooked, put the kids to bed, and ready to pay attention to what is of utmost importance to them. That's their time, and you're meeting them there. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And from our experience, it ties into the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's how things make sense, because what we've also seen is that the persons with the better spending ability is also the person who is absolutely short on time.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird in life because we never seem to have enough money and enough time at the same time in our lives.
Yeah.
There's always one run jostling the other. And so if you think about that corporate client who, for our purposes, we would like to get their eye, we want to put our product before them, we want to fulfill their dreams, we will not, under normal circumstances, get them in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
simply because their attention would be divided, and their vacation, now here we go again, putting self last, self care pops up again. Yes, I love my family. Yes, I need to de stress. Yes, I need to get away. But right now, I'm looking on the budget for the company. I'm looking on the proposal. I'm handling staff. So
Yeah.
I have to now put me on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might take me, the corporate exec, 2, 3 weeks, months, God forbid, years to catch up with my travel designer to
Mm-hmm.
plan this needed vacay because our times don't match.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So
Well,
my value proposition is, if I can give you time, would you find that as a value that you would even pay premium for?
yeah. And you know what, Sharon? What you have done by virtue of what you've just articulated is spending time on the foundation, right? Because you remember I was talking to you about how earlier where I was saying that you could find yourself doing a lot of different activities trying to get your business going, but you're not focusing on the things that really, really matters and that can generate significant income, right? So by knowing, spending the time might not appear to be
Mm-hmm.
a income generator by any means, but certainly it is the laying of a foundation, right? I mean, who builds a house or a mansion in the sky, right? Unless, of course, it's on a rock. So you have to spend time doing the foundational aspect of your work, because that's the platform in which your business is gonna shoot. Why am I saying all of that? Because you have done, what you've done inadvertently is create what is called a customer avatar. What your ideal customer looks like, the one that will bring in the big bucks, right? By understanding who your customer is, you would have know what their pattern is, where they congregate, who they actually spend time with, what reading material they would be interested in. Why is all of that important? Because you understand behavior. By understanding behavior, it means that you're in a better place to meet them where they are and serve them better than the person who didn't take the time to do all of that. You know what I'm saying?
That's powerful. And another thing that comes to my mind that my mentor Scott really hammered home was, where are you when your prospective clients are on holidays? So this has been my takeaway. Christmas, New Year's, public holidays, both for my country and the market that I serve, which is US and Canada, I don't take those days off. So I work every Christmas, I work every holiday for one reason. This is a time when people are together as a family. This is a time when they are talking holidays. This is a time when thoughts will pop into somebody's head saying, we should go here. We should do this. We should get some more information. Who can we call? And on the off chance somebody picks up my number and decides to ring my phone, and to their absolute joy, at 3 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, the phone answers, I'm at work and I'm ready to talk travel.
For sure. Available.
And so I have had situations where clients have said, do you even sleep? You're always here for me. And I would want to say it's coincidental, but it certainly is not, because we have been learning to study patterns, study habits. That same client avatar, we have determined that this is the time when these persons would be most available. So back to a conversation that you and I had yesterday, I would not be at the supermarket when everybody is at the supermarket. That doesn't mean I don't go grocery shopping. It means that when you are most likely at your desk between 9 to 11, catching up on that day's critical issues, doing meetings, having the ear of the persons who delegate, you're not going to more than likely be trying to reach out to me. That's when I'll go grocery shopping.
Strategy.
Steve, we're gonna catch it right there because there's so much more to say. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure sharing space today with Steve Cole, and there's so much more that is a part of this interview. And so we'd like to invite you to come back and check out part 2. It's coming up. And of course, we want to hear from you. What do you think is important to have on Sheri Says? Have your say with us, won't you? Until then, walk good.